Laboratorium Transportasi dan Analisa Spasial, dan juga Laboratorium Pengembangan Wilayah Pesisir dan Lingkungan yang berguna sebagai wadah interaksi akademisi baik dosen ataupun mahasiswa yang memiliki minat dan bidang keahlian tertentu.
Dengan sistem pembelajaran yang baik dan fasilitas penunjang yang lengkap, mahasiswa PWK ITS mampu meraih berbagai macam prestasi dalam bidang akademis seperti lomba PKM yang berskala nasional dan lomba lainnya. Selain baik di bidang akademis, mahasiswa PWK ITS juga aktif berkegiatan yang menambah kemampuan soft skill mereka. Mahasiswa PWK juga aktif dalam mengikuti aktivitas internasional.
Ya, jadi karena PWK itu berada di wilayah hilir dan mempelajari tentang kehidupan manusia dan kegiatannya yang ada di dalam ruang itu mulai dari ruang kawasan sampai ruang kota, pedesaan, sampai ruang yang berada di dalam wilayah yang lebih luas, maka keilmuan PWK kemanfaatannya pada saat ini sangat beragam, mulai dari substansi yang bersifat makro, kebijakan misalnya, sampai kepada mikro, perencanaan, perancangan, tentunya semuanya baik kebijakan maupun perancangan yang paling teknis itu semua terkait dengan ruang.
Ya, saya rasa lulusan perencanaan wilayah dan kota ITS mampu berkompetisi di dunia kerja. Mengapa? Karena lulusan dari Departemen Perencanaan Wilayah dan Kota memiliki keunggulan komparatif jika dibandingkan dengan lulusan dari universitas lainnya di Indonesia maupun dari mancanegara. Mengapa? Karena selama proses pembelajaran di Departemen PWK ini, setiap mahasiswa diberikan modal untuk berpikir secara sistematis, runut, dan terintegrasi. Oleh sebab itu, modal itu sangat penting untuk mendukung peranannya nantinya menjadi problem solver di dunia kerja. Saya rasa mereka akan bisa berkompetisi dan mereka akan sangat dibutuhkan oleh berbagai institusi di dunia kerja nantinya.
Begitulah cerita singkat mengenai Departemen Perencanaan Wilayah dan Kota, tempat belajar kami.
Ayo bergabung bersama kami.
Okay, hello everyone, good afternoon. Pak Cahyono is our Head of Urban Regional Department at ITS, and Dr. Courtney Babb. Hello, how are you, Doctor? From Curtin University, and Bu Erli as also our Secretary of Urban Regional Department. Hello, Bu Erli, and also.
Hello, Dr. Courtney. Very nice to meet you again.
Yes, I remember. Nice to see you again, and nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.
And good afternoon to Miss Madam Mina. Hello, Madam Mina from Curtin University.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And also good afternoon to all the students of our Urban and Regional Department here at ITS. So before we continue to the guest lectures sessions from Dr. Courtney Babb, there will be sessions regarding the Curtin University informations that will have collaborations with our Urban and Regional Departments in terms of joint degree and double degree possibilities for our undergraduate student level. So for the introductions, probably Pak Cahyono as our Head of Urban Regional Department will give us some informations regarding these collaborations. Please, Pak Cahyono.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Courtney.
Hi,
Hi, nice to see you. Yeah,
nice to meet you. Yes.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. And also,
Yeah.
Mina, how are you?
Very good, Dr.
Yeah.
Hado. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again to having us here today, and also Pak Ilman, Berli, and all the students. thank you all for joining us this good afternoon, in which we have two sessions, right? The first one will be the first introduction for Minacho about the possibility for our students from ITS to undertake a double degree program in Curtin University. I think I think we can have the students hopefully can get a good understanding about how they can go to Curtin University after they spend at least 2 years in ITS Surabaya. And afterwards, we will have a guest lecture for Dr. Courtney Babb about the transportation about the transportation. Hopefully, with these two sessions, we can get a lot of informations, both about the study possibilities in Curtin and also about the transportation that will be explained by Dr. Courtney Babb. So hopefully, everyone, we can have a good session. I'm sure. I'm sure we will have a good session this afternoon. Hopefully, we can all enjoy ourselves and we can have a good. I think, yeah. So the students can start their planning to go to Curtin University. I think that's it for me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Pak Cahyono, for opening our sessions and also giving a brief introductions. And now, please, all the students, it's time to listen to Madam Mina that for giving us informations that we are waiting for, so that students perhaps are interested in joining a double degree and joint degree at Curtin University. So please, Madam Mina, you can start your information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is my slide sharing fine?
Yes,
Thank you very much. Selamat siang, everyone. Thank you very much for having us today. My name is Mina Cho from Curtin University. I look after global partnerships. This session is really to acknowledge and celebrate this partnership arrangement between Institute Technology Sepular November and Curtin University. On this occasion, I would really like to express my special gratitude to Pak Cahyono and Bu Ariel to make this partnership happen and leading this project throughout the time and really opening the global pathway for our students. So I think it is only right that I will explain a little bit about Curtin University first. So Curtin is a world-class university, currently ranked top 1% in the world. And we're really excited with this partnership opportunity with ITS students from ITS. So this is where Curtin is located. Our main campus is located in Western Australia, Perth. And we also have 4 other global campuses around this region. Currently, urban and regional planning course is only available in Western Australia. You will have the best experience in Western Australia, I promise. So let me start by why Western Australia and why Curtin University. Why? Firstly, Perth, Western Australia is a world-class city, and it has been nominated and awarded as one of the most livable countries around the world. That is with the infrastructure, health, education, and safety. And all in all, this provides you the best study destination opportunity and also the employment opportunity when you want to go forward in your career journey. Of course, Curtin University as a study destination, the reason why is Curtin is world-class university where you can enjoy the world-class education. And this was demonstrated and proven by the world ranking system, firstly with QS ranking, and Curtin ranked 183 in Curtin ranking in 2023, and also ranked in the top 1% by the academic ranking of the World University ranking score. Finally, why Curtin University in Western Australia? Curtin is one of the top graduate employment opportunity. So Curtin was ranked as #1 university in Western Australia for graduate employment and starting salary, teaching quality, and skills development. It is all we're really working hard for your graduate outcome. So before I go on, let me share a short video so that you can feel how the Curtin campus look and feel like. There we go. I hope that you had a little bit of taste of a vibrant Curtin campus. It is a wonderful place, really, not just to study and really work as well as a staff member, just like myself. So let's talk about the dual degree, double degree. It's the same term, but dual degree, how does that work? Dual degree in Bachelor of Urban and Regional Planning. So all in all, the main message is you will get to have 2 degrees from Indonesia and Australia by Curtin University in 4 years, the same duration that you'll be expecting to receive the degree from home university, ITS. So how does that work? So basically, you will complete, so ITS, the Urban and Regional Planning team and Curtin University team work together to match and map out the credit recognition between the 2 degrees. So what you need to do is, firstly, you will complete year 1 and year 2 in ITS, as you are currently doing. once you successfully complete your degree up to 2 year, second year, then you can then transfer to Curtin University to complete the third and fourth year at the Curtin University. Then at the end of the fourth year, you will receive 2 graduation awards in Bachelor of Urban and Regional Planning by both university. So this is actually a best of the both world, that you get to learn about the local knowledge and interest, and how does that fit into Indonesian environment, and then move over to Western Australia Curtin University to really explore how does that apply to the global mindset, and what are the differences from across Indonesia to Australia. So it is all these words are from me. So let's hear from one of our students. Rayhan is our student in Bachelor of Urban and Regional Planning students, and he too is currently doing the 2+2 double degree course. He has been at Curtin just 1 semester now and absolutely enjoying his stay here. So let's hear what he had to say about his work and study and life at Curtin.
It's really enjoyable living in here. I already go to the city, walk around the city. It's really nice, especially because Perth is one of the most green country in the world. They have a lot of green open space, and I'm in a Bachelor of Urban Planning, so we deal with that kind of stuff. And yeah, I really like it. Hi, my name is Rehan. I'm studying Urban Planning, and I'm from Indonesia. I really like their transportation facility, because I think it's already well integrated. So if I don't have a car in here, so if I want to go to the city, I just like going the bus or transportation. I also learned about transportation, so it's really nice to have a real study case in here. Yeah. What I love in here is the accessibility of the facility, because the building, one of my favorite building 418, and the library, they're open 24 hours, right? So if I want to study outside my room, I can just easily go there and have my work assignment done. One of the most interesting also, my lecturer is actually take his PhD in Indonesia, and he told me in the first day in our unit, and he talked about the case study in Indonesia to help me get more understanding on the unit. So I really appreciate that. The lecture was nice, the unit is really interesting, and I like the environment studying. And one particular software that I like is the GIS, the Geographic Information System. We also study a lot of GIS in my unit. So it's really good. So one of the most exciting experience in here is the campus tour. So I become the guide for the campus tour for the Curtin University guests. So I give them some maybe 1 or 2 hours campus tour. We walk around the campus to see the landmark or the interesting spot throughout the area, and I'm really proud becoming the campus tour guide, because it's given me a lot of experience, because this is my first time become a tour guide, and I'm representing my uni here. Just be open and be brave to interact with others, and enjoy your time in here. Yeah. It is one of the unforgettable memories, I think.
Well, for me, it was wonderful to hear from Rayhan that he is making unforgettable memories. Is making an unforgettable memories at in Perth at Curtin, and he has been very active to be a Curtin representative for the official guests from Indonesia. I'm sure that you too will have the same experience or even better experience than Rayhan. So these are the images here that you're seeing is they are the facilities that our planning students will study and live and pull their hair out for exam while they're preparing for the assignment or exam. So all sounds very good. Both of the best of the both world, the double degree. And so what do we need? So admission requirements for the double degree program, there are mainly two requirements for you to meet. Firstly, you need to successfully complete the 2 years, first year, the second year from ITS. And you also will need to meet English requirements, English proficiency requirement, for example, the IELTS academic exam. Where in this school, you will require overall of 6.5 with no less than 6.0. So you will need two of these requirements. And intake at Curtin is there are semester 1 will be February, or if you are starting in semester 2, it will be July. So it's February or July. So that is all from me. If you have any more questions, I'm always here to answer any questions for you. We also have in-country manager, Patricia Kelly, and I'm sure the academic collaboration team will be able to get you in touch with one of us at Curtin. So first up, if you have any questions, do contact Bu Devi in the academic double degree, joint degree academic collaboration team. That is all from me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madam Mina, for giving a brief explanation regarding Curtin University as general, especially the Urban Regional Planning Department, and also showing for some student experience there, and also regarding a possible program, the dual programs, regarding requirements, and also some facilities. So now let's hear from the students. Are there any questions from the students regarding this dual programs possibility? Please raise your hands if you'd like to ask some things.
I think if the students interested to go to Curtin, they can contact their study counselor or dosen wali, the study counselor, or to Bu Erli.
Yes.
So if anyone interested and now answer question, they can ask to myself or Bu Erli or their study counselor. Okay, Pak Ilman.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Cahyono. So now let's thank you once again for the explanations, Madam Mina. So I'm sure we will be contacting you soon while we gather all the informations from the students. Every year we receive international undergrad programs who are interested in this dual program. So we will have some students for this dual program, I think, for next year. So is there anything from Madam Bu Erli for these explanations, or everything is good from Bu Erli?
I think Mina has delivered the whole information about our dual program. Hopefully our students have interest to apply this program maybe for the next year. So if you have any question, please here Bumina will give you some information about anything about the program or about the life hack in Australia. So yes, please, all the students can ask from this session. You can you can ask all the question from this session. Yes, I think that's all, Pak Ilman. Thank you very much, Bu Mina, for the information.
Yeah. So I think a question from me, Pak Cahyono and also Madam Mina. So are the programs already started in this year or it will be started next year? Or
Yeah, I think we are finalizing the agreement, right? You know?
Yes.
And yeah, I think the soonest, the earliest possible will be the second intakes next year. I think for this year is the deadline is already passed.
No, that took for us. If we do it really fast, we should be able to accommodate any students from February at Curtin.
Yeah, February at Curtin, next year.
Yes, that's right. Next year.
Yeah, next year is the earliest possible.
So the earliest intake will be next February for the students. Yeah, okay.
That's right.
So, thank you. That's one clear information. I think that will be enough. So let's continue to our next sessions. A guest lectures from Dr. Courtney Babb that will be moderated by Bu Siti, I guess. Is Bu Siti already here?
Yes, Pak Ilman. Hello, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Join the session. Guest lecture.
Hello, Bu Siti. So the time is yours to continue the guest lecture session. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ilman, for the opportunity. Hello, Bu Ali, Pak Cahyono, Mr. Courtney Babb, and all the students. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome everyone to our guest lecture session today. So I'm good. I'm very delightful here to join the session. Our guest lecture today will be about transport demand management and policy approach for livable zero carbon cities. The guest lecture will be delivered by, actually, he is one of my best friend in college. Back then in Curtin University when I took my PhD. Hello, Pak Courtney.
Hi, it's great to see you again. It's been a while.
Long time no see, Pak. Yeah.
Yes.
When the video was played, I well remember on about basement cafe, Guildford, co-op bookstore, Pak, and so on. Yeah.
Yes, brings back memories.
Yes, Pak. Yeah, I'm very happy that we can meet again here online in this beautiful moment, Pak. Yeah. So let me introduce you briefly to the students. Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Mr. Courtney Babb, or Dr. Courtney Babb, he is a senior lecturer in School of Design and Built Environment, Faculty of Humanities, Curtin University of Technology. Bapak Courtney, we call you Bapak Courtney, if that's fine, Bapak Courtney is Bapak is sir in bahasa is Bapak, So Bapak Courtney teaching in urban transport system, planning theory, history planning theory and the context, also past teaching regarding the planning for sustainability. His research interests include institutional design and change in spatial planning, transport institution, and the politics of resisting automobility, transition to low energy transport system, and integrating planning and management for living environment. And his current research projects include planning for cycling in local government, micro-mobility, and freight in urban center, inner city parking policy, data for climate resilient housing policy, and integrated river catchment management. His latest publication, I think, from the information I got, is regarding micro-mobility for first and last mile access to public transport, institutional perspective from Perth, Eastern Australia. So everyone, we will invite Bapak Courtney to start his guest lecture. Yeah. So this guest lecture will take place until 3 p.m. Surabaya time, or I think 4 p.m. Yeah, per time yeah, Pak. Yeah. So after delivering the material, there will be a questions and answer sessions until the time is over. So Pak Courtney, please to start the guest lecture, Pak. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you, Siti. I'll just share my screen.
Okay, Pak. Yeah.
How's that? Is that?
Yeah, it's all up. Pak. Okay. Yeah.
Great, fantastic. Selamat siang, everyone. Thank you for having me and attending today and listening. I spoke a couple of years ago. I think it was during COVID, and had a similar lecture, and it's really great to be able to have the opportunity to do that again. So I'll keep the lecture to about 45 minutes or so. I'll try to do that. I tend to have lots and lots of slides, and so I might move through them quite quickly. But I'm really keen to hear some questions. So if you've got any questions along the way, maybe make a note, and it'd be nice to hear a little bit from you. So here's the structure of what I'll talk about today. But I won't go into that here. I'll just a little bit about me. So I've been introduced, but I'm a senior lecturer in urban and regional planning, and I have been since 2015, and I was doing my PhD along with Siti. That's previously before that, and my PhD was on children's travel. So it was looking at children's walking and cycling in local neighbourhoods. But I've done a range of. I won't go back into what I've done. I think that was covered. But so I teach classes in urban transport systems, and I've got a photo here in the centre there with my students, and that was from a participatory planning class. We did a series of workshops with a local community about a skate park and a recreational park, and worked with the children there. I've got a photo down in the left there. I do one of the things I do outside of university. I do a martial art called kendo, and that takes up a lot of my time. And I also garden as well. So, and my garden is down in the bottom right-hand corner as well. So that's a bit about me. In terms of Western Australia and what Western Australia is like. I'm not sure if many of you have been to Perth or Australia, but Perth is one of the longest cities in the world. It has a reputation for being a very long city. It's about 150 kilometres. We're also a very isolated city, and I think you're all in Surabaya or near Surabaya, and Surabaya and Java, east of Java, is actually closer to Perth than it is to Sydney. So we're actually quite isolated in terms of Perth. There's not a lot in between in terms of people between us and Sydney. I've got a picture of a quokka there because that's the little furry animal, and people like to take photos of those when they come to Western Australia. So and there's just a photo there of, I suppose, what Perth looks like as a city, which is, it's a very low density, very suburban city. It has a lot of nice green spaces, we're also in the bottom right hand corner. I've got some photos of flowers. We're also within one of the world's one of the world's biodiversity hotspots. So there's a range of wildflowers and at various times of the year. So very beautiful place. I've lived here all my life. So it's a wonderful place. So great if some of you can join us for the double degree. So what I'm going to talk about today, there we go. I'm going to talk about travel demand management. This is a similar lecture I gave last time, and it's quite a broad focusing lecture. It looks at a range of different tools and policy tools that we can use in transport and also land use planning in order to manage the demand for transport. And I'm going to look at that with a focus on decarbonisation, because it's both reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the transport sector is one of the challenges that we will be facing as future transport planners, as future urban planners. So I'll present it looking at the potential for some of these policy tools to address issues of lowering our emissions globally. And my experience is from Australian cities, and that's what I'm used to. But so I recognise that there's a lot of differences between cities around the world, and I'll try to pick up on some of those differences. But apologies if I'm talking generally, and I might be referring to an Australian context. But context is really important to understand here as well, and I'll try to clarify some of those points. So decarbonising transport or reducing greenhouse gas emissions, like I say, is going to be a big challenge. Transport is a big contributor to greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. So worldwide, it's about 15% of total emissions and about 23% of global energy-related emissions. The main culprit is road transport, and particularly cars. So that makes up the largest segment of greenhouse gas emissions, up to about 70%. In various scenarios, because we don't know how things are going to play out, and we need to look at a range of scenarios. But in a range of scenarios, transport emissions are set to grow by about 16 to 50% and by 2050, and that's globally as well. So this is a real challenge. If we are to keep our emissions within a threshold to keep to 1.5 degrees, which is the target, but that is increasingly looking like we may not reach that target. But we need to basically require reductions of transport up to about 90% by 2050, and that's a huge challenge. So we need to make transformative changes in our cities. And these are cities around the world, not only just Australian cities, but the cities and the way that things are going. We need to think about how to change this. It is a challenge because transport is referred to as a hard to decarbonise sector. It's growing in demand. So there's as populations increase and also lifestyles change and things like this, there's a growing demand for transport. We have a lot of what we call path dependency in terms of that decisions that we made previously in previous decades, and that they still have an effect, an ongoing effect in terms of shaping some of the factors that are affecting us now, whether that's in sort of policy or institutions or even the cities that we build. And there's a whole heap of other challenges with air travel and shipping and things like this, which I won't go into today, but it's quite a serious challenge. So this graph shows the global contribution that transport makes, and the main thing to look at here is the contribution of road-based transportation emissions, which is, like I said, close to about 70%. If we look at that, sort of what's happening around the world and in the different regions, and it's definitely not even. And you can see there, this is a total of greenhouse gas emissions. It's not per capita, but it's showing that the main contributors are North America, and we have sort of looking at Europe and East Asia. Oops, sorry. There we go, went through. But you can see in places like your context in Southeast Asia and South Asia, whereas the contributions are low, they're growing very rapidly, and a lot of that is road transport, and road transport is in the yellow there. This gives us a bit of another indicator of in terms of looking at road transport. Road transport, a large majority of the emissions made regarding road transport emissions are from privatised vehicles, so cars. And we can see that that there's a wide variety as well in terms of Australia is there towards the top in terms of we have high car ownership rates here, just under 800 per 1,000 people. Indonesia is there, and it's just under, it looks like it's under about 450, but you can see from the last graph that's car ownership and car use is growing. I was surprised at Malaysia there in terms of the car ownership, which is one of the high. I think it is the highest in terms of the car ownership there, which I was a little surprised by, but I didn't realise that. But you can see there's a lot of regional variation as well in terms of some of these indicators. So when we're looking at decarbonising transport, how do we do it? The IPCC, who've written a range of reports at periodic times in terms of what we can do about mitigating transport emissions, they recommend a range of policy strategies, and these range a mix from electrifying our vehicles, providing different fuel sources, but also demand management approaches, and I'll talk about those particularly in the next few slides. It's important to know as well that we may think about decarbonising transport, but when we think about it, we're also thinking about other things as well. There's a lot of co-benefits. So a lot of the things that we do to reduce emissions with our transportation, it also helps with other things. It helps make our cities livable. It helps reduce traffic fatalities and things like this. So there's a lot of, we need to think about also the different benefits that stem from this as well. And we also need to think about some of the solutions and what might be the negative consequences of some of the solutions. So particularly with electric vehicles, there's electric vehicles still require a lot of resources. They still take up space in cities. And so it's not as simple as taking current trends and basically just changing the fuel source, so changing it to electric and make it a cleaner source. There's still a range of problems with that, and we need to address. Climate adaptation is also important, so we need to not only reduce our emissions, but also factor in the emissions that we are adding to the atmosphere now and what those changes are. And some of those changes will have impacts on transport in terms of how comfortable it is to get around in warming temperatures, but also the infrastructure and whether it can stand hotter temperatures and then things like flooding and things like this. So adaptation needs to be important as well. And cities account for about 70% of emissions. So if we can decarbonise our cities, we make a big contribution to this global effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So which ways do we go and what solutions do we have? So one solution is that for the increasing demand that there will be for transportation is that we build the infrastructure for it. So this is either through new roads, road widening, but also adding things like public transport infrastructure, public transport services, bike networks, paths and things like this. And this has been the traditional approach, particularly in Australia and United States and other places around the world, is that we've tended to look at the growing demand for transportation and think, oh, okay, let's just accommodate that. Let's just build the infrastructure for it. And that's, that approach will still be needed. We'll still need to build new train lines, new roads, new paths and things. So supply side approaches will be needed. But it's a question of also what type of infrastructure and what type of supply do we build into our transport systems. We can't keep accommodating growing travel demand by increasing road space, and part of the reason is it's so inefficient. And you can see this graph here this is basically showing how many people can move around in a sort of typical, this is a 3.5 wide lane. So it shows that in mixed traffic, it can move only about 2,000 people per hour. And then as you get towards the more what we call more sustainable modes, excuse me, so cyclists, pedestrians, that suddenly increases a lot. And then we look at heavy rail, light rail, and bus rapid transit, and you can see that they move a lot more people around the city. Excuse me. So if we are to add supply, we need to add supply or add services or new transport infrastructure for the most efficient means so that we can address. But that's not always the possible. This is a photo I got from I think it's Jakarta, and there's supply constraint issues in all modes as well. So we need to accommodate this as well. We can't build our way out of our current problems. So the growth in demand is going to be through population growth and just like I said, lifestyle changes. It's going to be to a point that it will be challenged because cities they're spatially constrained. We don't have a lot of space in cities as they grow. Infrastructure becomes more resource intensive and more expensive as we try to build in very busy and dense cities. There's a lot of political barriers in terms of sometimes providing infrastructure. Funding and financing is a challenge, and there's a lot of risk in big transport infrastructure projects. And a lot of projects are poorly considered at the outcome, and they tend to be a lot more expensive or take a lot longer, particularly as they get bigger and bigger. So supply approaches or building supply into the urban transport systems is problematic. So I'll talk about travel demand management as an alternative approach or one approach to take, and one that I think has a lot of benefits to achieving decarbonisation and other goals in urban transport systems. So when talking about travel demand management, we're talking about sort of policy approaches rather than building things so much. So this is basically define it as the general sort of goal setting and just about decision making, about how resources are allocated, how rules are made, how systems are redesigned to achieve transportation goals. So we can have transport plans, and these tend to be sort of a set of strategic actions that guide people to achieve certain outcomes in a region, a precinct, or whatever. Or there's transport policies, and these tend to be mechanisms that for government and other organisations that shape transport choices through different ways, through regulation, legislation, and other different sort of policy tools. So transport policy, it's very powerful in terms of how it can affect, but it's often kind of neglected in terms of a innovative approach. It's neglected compared to some of the more bigger sort of infrastructure projects which attract a lot of attention but policy is about who owns things, and this is basically who has control over doing things. So certain parts of the transport system are owned by different sort of actors, and we need to think that. It's about the allocation of subsidies and expenditures. So who benefits from those subsidies and expenditures? Things like taxation design, who bears the cost of the tax, and where does that revenue from the tax, who benefits from that? Then there's regulation codes, legislations. So these are rules that try to shape people's behaviour in particular ways. And then it goes all the way through to contracting agreements with the private sector. So whose interests are met? Are public interests met, or are private interests met? And finally, sort of monitoring research and development. How can we learn from what we do, and how can we improve it as well? So transport policy sort of picks up on all of these issues. So when it comes to travel demand and management and these policies, so the most recent intergovernment panel on climate change, which looked at mitigation, about how we can lower our transport emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. I've just pulled these statements out from the document, and these are pretty prominent statements. They're right at the front of the document, and it's a shift in the way that we approach and look at decarbonising transport. So it mentions that we need transformative change. But it says that we can achieve this partly through demand management solutions. And it points to a range that have been successful in reducing demand for transport services and therefore reducing sort of the emissions from transportations. And this is seen a way to help us achieve this systemic transformative change that they're talking about. So at the IPCC report, and it highlights this overall objective about what we're trying to achieve, or how we can achieve different elements of this demand management or this policy approach. And they use this framework of avoid, shift, and improve. And you may have heard of this. It's kind of it's used in a range of sort of policy worlds. And this is basically, it's about three different approaches. So avoid is basically reducing. So this is where a person chooses to reduce their demand. They may respond to an incentive. It may be because their attitudes have changed, or it may be because there's a system disruption, maybe like COVID or something like this. And so there's a reduction in emissions because people avoid that behaviour. People can then also shift or maintain their behaviour, but do it in a way that's more, it creates lower emissions, it's more efficient. So the person chooses a lower emission behaviour. This might be through more information and a range of varieties. And then also you can improve, basically the improved efficiencies of our technologies that will lead to emissions reduction. So these combination of these three approaches are seen to be kind of best practice in how we address decarbonisation of urban transport systems. Unfortunately, I think mostly policymakers, at least in Australia, focus on the last one, improve, and they look at vehicle fuel efficiencies, vehicle technological innovation, things like this. But we don't tend to do the avoid or the shift as much. And I think we need more emphasis on those two things, and travel demand management does that. So when we're talking about travel demand management, you would have seen the word behaviour in the previous slide, that this is about changing behaviours. So when we're talking about travel, there's just some background sort of basics, that travel behaviour is primarily concerned with the question, why, given all the opportunities available to people, do they make the choices they make? And then we look at travel demand. This is the amount and type of travel people would choose under specific conditions, taking account factors such as the quality of the transport options available and their prices. So these are the things we're looking at, providing choices for people and shaping their behaviour in particular ways in order to reduce demand and change travel behaviour. And this leads to what we call travel demand management. I've got some definitions here. I won't go specifically through them, but this is a new way of, well, it's not new. So it's been around for decades. It doesn't get a lot of attention. So maybe not so much a new way, but I think an important way that we can think about transport problems that doesn't rely on us building our way out of it. So the definitions here talk about changing behaviour. I've included a number of them because some of them focus on changing behaviour to reduce congestion, which is one thing you can do, but I think we can do more with travel demand management and also look at reducing emissions as well, but also addressing other objectives that we want from our transport systems, that they're safe, that they're accessible, all these kinds of things. So the objectives of different strategies and techniques is to manage travel demand. They can address a number of objectives, like I talked about, reducing congestion, emissions reduction, economic benefits. And again, it's important. There's multiple interactive benefits as well. It's not just one, but if we reduce car use in a particular area, that has flow-on effects for the environment, the street environment, maybe for businesses and things like this. So travel demand approaches employ a range of techniques that reduce the cost of travel. They shape attitudes. They provide incentives for people to travel a particular way. And these change the conditions on which we make decisions about travel demand, about how we travel. So there's three, this is moving towards, I'll go through a bit of a framework of different travel demand approaches. So it makes it a little bit more maybe real for you rather than conceptual and definitional. But in order to, and I've categorised them in particular ways. In order to categorise them, I looked at three different elements of travel demand management to try to work out the different approaches and organise and categorise them in particular ways. So the first criteria or aspect of travel demand management, this suggests that travel demand management responds to transport markets in different ways. And what I mean by transport markets is the different reasons that we travel for. So if you think about travelling to university, it has a different, there's a different set of conditions that shape the demand for you travelling to university than it would if you were travelling to maybe go buy some food or even go visit a friend or something like this. So all of these different types of travel or ways that we travel, we have different decisions that actually go into evaluating that decision. So we need to think about that. We need to separate the different markets. So the commute, shopping, recreational, educational, they're all different sort of different transport markets. There's also different behavioural responses that we try to achieve through travel demand management. Some of them might be to, and this goes back to the avoid and the shift, but there's a few more here, but it might be to reduce the need for travel. So to eliminate the necessity for some trips to occur. So that way we save emissions and we reduce demand that way. Might be shifting the mode, so shifting to an alternative mode. So rather than I don't know, getting on a bike or a motorbike or something like this, it might be walking or a bus or something like that. We can also manage the time of travel. So this is what we call sometimes peak spreading. So at different times of days, there's different peaks of travel, and if we can ease those peaks, so get people to travel in outside of those very busy times, that reduces congestion. So there's a number of ways we can do that. Or we can manage the route of travel, so shift travel demand to less congested routes. And that's a good one for addressing congestion. Maybe not so much emissions, but and the final one is criteria for travel demand management is what we call push or pull mechanisms. So this is basically saying that travel demand management instruments they can provide an incentive for people to travel in a different way, or they can provide a disincentive for people to travel in a different way. So sometimes we refer to this as carrots, which are enable desirable behaviour, or sticks, which is deter undesirable behaviour. So we find the research shows that both are important when we're looking at shaping travel demand in different ways. But again, they're very different approaches, and we need to consider that when we're thinking about recommending policy or making policy to address issues. So just took time. So this is the framework that I came up, and this is a piece of research I did quite a while ago. It's almost getting to 10 years, but I'm looking into it again. We were looking at congestion management at the time. I'm looking into this now as a way of decarbonising. So a different approach, different objective. excuse me. But I'll go through these different categories now, just so you can get a sense of how the framework works, and then I'll finish up with some concluding comments. So there were 9 sort of groups of travel demand management tools. And the way that I've organised them, probably the best way to describe it is that they start at that sort of pull mechanism. So they start with the carrots and they end with the sticks. So these are more about providing incentives for people to travel in different ways. So the first is that what we can do is we can improve alternative modes so that we can facilitate a shift away from more polluting, more resource-intensive transportation. And there's a range of mechanisms we can do this. If we're looking at improving walking and cycling, simple things like improving the quality of the environment for people walking and cycling, so streetscape improvements. Other things are education programs. We have a range of sort of cycling education programs in Australia, where we teach children to cycle safely and build up those skills. Then there might be other things like legislation and rules about who has rights to use the road in a particular way, and sometimes we find that vehicle drivers and car drivers sometimes have priority rights in streets. So we may be looking at changing that. For public transport, there's a number of ways as well. Again, just improvements to stations and stops to make it more comfortable for people to be there and choose that as a mode of transportation. Going through to better integration of public transport services. So this is so that buses maybe integrate to a train station, or that they're integrated, that they arrive at a bus stop when another bus is about to leave, so it enables people to use 2 services and helps sort of remove that sort of friction from travel. And then there's going through to sort of pricing, so maybe even financial subsidies for public transport use, providing subsidies for people who you're trying to attract to a service and things like that. So improving alternative modes is important. So the IPCC said that we can achieve anything from 2 to 10% of reductions in our transport emissions by 2050, just through improving alternative modes. And there's a range of research that says that these are important mechanisms to help that happen. The next one is integrated land use and transport. I grabbed the image on the left, and this is, I think, from the new high-speed rail that's opened up between Jakarta and Bandung, and it looks like a proposal. I'm not sure how, but with that plan, it looks like they're planning transit-oriented developments, so developments around stations, in order to facilitate more people using that service and a reduction in car use. So integrating land use and transport planning is quite it's a very broad area, and there's a range of mechanisms. But developments like this are one example. You can think, regionally, we think about, growth strategies, transit-oriented developments as those regional tools. But then it can get down to the local level, and again, this is kind of tailored towards Australian sort of planning systems. But I'm not sure about the equivalent tools that you might have in Indonesia. But even so, when we assess development, there might be a need for assessing the development in relation to how much transport it's going to attract or generate, and reducing that somehow. So there might be urban design guidelines associated with development to facilitate, a good high quality pedestrian environment around where the development is being built. A range of mechanisms like that are situated in the land use planning system, but relate to transport. And potentially, these changes can have significant reduction benefits for transport emissions. So again, IPCC said to about 4 to 25%. That's a big range. But again, it's the scenarios are it's uncertain about sort of the pathways forward. One of the things I'm a little concerned about with land use transport integration or changing sort of development to achieve goals of decarbonisation is that changes to land use and urban structure, they take time. And we may not have the time. We may need to act a bit more urgently, but these are important anyway. I think for long-term goals in those other benefits for cities in terms of livability and safety and things. The next two categories I've put together because they share some similarities or there's a bit of crossover, but these are workplace-based travel demand management and also travel behaviour change programs. So workplace, a lot of these ideas come from the United States. In Australia, we practice some, but there's a workplace culture in the United States around travel demand management and trying to get their employees in more sustainable modes of transport. Travel behaviour change are programs that actually work with people to change their patterns directly. So it would be there'd be an officer, a travel behaviour officer, and they'd sit and work out travel plans with people in order to help them shift to a more sustainable, low carbon transport. And they might do that by providing information. They may provide sort of incentives, that if they catch the bus a certain amount of times, they get points, and then there's a reward system and things like this. Or it may be even just providing information about new infrastructure or new options available to them. So the reason these are together is that often we see travel behaviour change programs used in workplaces. So an officer will try to work with employees to get them to maybe choose a more sustainable mode of transport to work. There's a range here. I won't go through all of them, but telecommuting and teleconferencing has become a very it's become a real potential. It has huge potential given what we experienced with COVID, with a lot of uptake of remote, like we're doing now. Remote work. Obviously, that's very different for people around the world and different sort of sectors, but it opened the possibility that we can actually reduce travel through more careful and planned ways of using sort of telecommuting and online communication. But there's a range of others there. It might be simple providing good bike storage for employees, sometimes subsidising public transport travel, and also changing the schedule of the work. So the work they may allow a shorter working week, but maybe working longer hours during those days, and so on the last day, or you may not need to go into work and things like this. So different sort of ways in which work schedules can be planned in order to reduce travel. So the IPC suggests that has a small reduction in potential for emissions. But I think that information was taken prior to COVID-19, and I think COVID-19 highlighted this capacity that we can move different types of work online. So there's a greater capacity for teleconferencing and things like this. But we also saw with COVID-19 that in Australia and other countries, when the restrictions were lifted, there was quite a strong increase in demand for travel as people sort of got back to normal sort of day-to-day life, and emissions, although were reduced initially, they went back up again quite rapidly. So that's a challenge as well. So the fifth one, information and engagement. I'll move through quickly. I realise I'm running out of time, but information engagement is basically the use of digital technologies and smart technologies in order to provide real-time and more instantaneous information to potential people who are travelling. Usually by public transport is a really good example where this happens. So it might be apps that have information about when services are coming. Real-time public transport data, and also the use of sort of artificial intelligence and big data in order to analyse complex and real-time data sets in order to achieve different functions. So information engagement has a lot of applications in terms of decarbonisation. So we can look at optimising transport systems, much more integration between the different modes, between train and bus or taxi or all these kinds of things. Can be integrated into travel behaviour change programs in order to provide that information to people and change behaviour in a deliberate way. But there are issues for we need to think about in terms of privacy of data and the coordination of different data, and also the governance aspect in terms of that a lot of the services that are being provided in the information and engagement category are by private companies, and so there's issues about data security and things, and also that different population segments respond in different ways. So that older people would respond differently to younger people to sort of new technological changes. So we need to take that into consideration. The sixth one is about management of our road space, and road space is critical for moving people around. We've prioritised giving road space to cars, and that's increasing. So managing road space in order to provide more space for alternative modes is a really important one. And this can be achieved in different ways. It could be taking this kind of the physical space of roads and reclaiming that, maybe creating a bike lane or space for people, or providing some traffic reduction, speed reduction interventions. So there's a range. There's dedicated bus lanes, which is a big one. Road diets is where we take lanes, a lane that we're not using so much in a road, and basically reallocate that for pedestrians, but a little bit more sort of careful about how we design for cars moving in that area. So again, this contributes a lot of co-benefits for decarbonisation by creating great spaces, great streets in cities. And again, during COVID-19, we saw how around the world in various places about temporarily, in a lot of places, the streets were reallocated for people moving around by walking and cycling. And there was a range, showed the potential for this to change behaviour or offer new benefits for people. But there's a challenge in making these sort of temporary changes more permanent, and reallocating road space tends to be really political. There's a lot of, particularly for parking and car users, that there's a lot of sort of political factors there, and so they tend to be quite contentious. Seventh is governance and regulation, and this is more about sort of regulatory mechanisms towards the stick. So using as a disincentive, although there are some incentives here. And these are sort of interactions between different sort of markets or regulatory mechanisms, and they can facilitate relationships between the public and private organisations. So there's a range of interesting ones, approaches. Again, incentivise alternatives to car travel by in the Netherlands, they paid people to travel by public transport and bike, but it might be even vehicle quotas like the Singapore certificate of that they have for their vehicles, or even restrictions, license plates restrictions. And I think Jakarta has a day or places in which people can, with odd and even license plates, can use that infrastructure on alternative days. Car share schemes, carbon reduction or air quality targets have these can be important mechanisms that have flow-on effects for decisions about how we plan streets and plan transport. So these can be very powerful as well. A lot about sort of shared mobility and getting people to share car travel or other types of modes has been, the IPCC suggests that might reduce about 12% of transport emissions by 2050, and there's a range of. Eighth one is parking. Parking is I think incredibly powerful in terms of managing our travel demand. People wouldn't drive if they knew that they weren't certain that they'd get a parking spot at the end of that trip. So that the pricing and the availability of those parking spaces can be a really good factor in shaping people's travel demands. And there's a range of sort of policy tools there. I won't go through them, but some of them are about the restricting the supply of parking, but also through pricing as well. And it might be, there's also things we need to think about in terms of removing the existing parking sort of policy and institutions. So things like minimum parking requirements that are required as part of a development, so that you build a development, you've got to provide 2 car parking bays or something like this. Some of those, if we can reform those to be a bit more progressive. But we also need to introduce new instruments and technologies in order to modernise and update parking so that it is more responsive to demand, and we can shape demand different ways. The final one is more about sort of financial travel demand management instruments, and these are the real sort of sticks. These are the taxes, the levies, tolls and things like this that impose a financial cost on people driving. So these sort of different pricing mechanisms or pricing car use or even ownership can be designed to meet decarbonisation, congestion relief and urban sustainability goals. They've been long proposed and they're becoming much easier to implement because we have a lot of sort of technological innovation going on in cities in terms of not only in vehicles themselves, but in the way that we monitor cities. So we can actually start to facilitate these approaches. So some examples are road pricing more generally, tolls. I've got a question mark over tolls because sometimes the toll, it depends what the toll pays for. Sometimes if it's paying for the infrastructure, like it goes back into the infrastructure, you could argue that that's more about supply, it's creating supply. But sometimes tolls can be there to maybe stop people travelling in very congested times. So the toll goes up, might be a variable sort of price, and that might sort of restrict people's demand at travelling at particular times. There's a range of other cars with distance based, so there's a charge on how far people drive, according to how far people drive, the weight of their vehicles, and also cordon charging or congestion charging. And in the background, it's not very clear, but that's the London congestion charging area, basically, where you have to pay a price in order to enter into the central London congestion zone, and that's all. And the money that gets used basically gets reinvested in improvements in this area as well. So there's a clear link between the tax and the benefits of that tax. So the shift to electric vehicles is going to cause us the need to look at more of these mechanisms, basically because around the world, a lot of cities, countries, they get their money through petrol taxes. So as we have EVs and more electric vehicles on the road, the amount of revenue that governments get from petrol tax is going to be reduced. So they will be looking for more innovative ways in order to tax and charge car use in cities. Financial travel demand management instruments can be difficult to implement because the public acceptability and the political feasibility can be challenging because they charge their tax and people don't like taxes. However, the design of schemes to connect the taxes and charges with the benefits. So like I said, with the London, they charge the driver, but the money goes back into the area to improve alternative travel. That can be a way in which you can make it more sort of acceptable, more politically feasible. So I think this is my last slide. So managing travel demand basically is a conclusion and thinking about the role of travel demand in decarbonisation. We need to think about a systems approach. We need to think about the complexity of urban transport systems and how they kind of interact with different systems, whether there are kind of our own sort of lifestyles or the land use system, things like this. We need to do this in order to be able to identify good policy mixes or different instruments that will work to meet our objectives. And avoid a sort of backfire that we introduce a policy and there's these unintended consequences that lead to more emissions, which can happen. There's a mix of travel demand policies is needed. The research says that we need both sticks and we need both and carrots as well. So incentives and disincentives, and we need to think about how we can balance these so to provide improve the political feasibility of implementing these. Travel demand management also needs to be effective, acceptable, and politically feasible. And reiterating what I said at the beginning of the lecture, global, regional, and local contexts are different, and they play a critical role in the success. So taking one set of policies that worked well in one area, and assuming they're going to work the same way in another area, it doesn't work. We need to think about the context. We need to plan with the people. We need to engage communities and stakeholders and test and evaluate as well. And the final point as well is that we need to think about equity and transport justice as well as other goals as decarbonisation. There's real risks that if we think purely about decarbonisation, that can create can cause much greater inequity and have issues for transport justice in terms of the access of different groups in moving around cities. And that's my final slide. So thanks very much. I think I went a little over. Sorry, like I said, I tend to have lots of slides. But yes, I'm happy to. I'll throw back to you, Siti. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so Courtney, thank you very much for a very comprehensive overview. Yeah, so we have a lot. We have a little bit time remaining, about 30 minutes. So maybe we can open question session. So please, students, if you would like to ask to Courtney, raise your hand. Yeah, we will start with three first participants. Courtney will be happy to share best practice from first. Yeah. I think first is already assigned as the 12th most livable city in the world. Is that correct, faculty? I googled the data from the website, yeah, from the committee for perth.com.au, saying that in 2023, Perth has been named as the 12th most livable city in the world by Economist Intelligence Unit Global Livable Index 2023, and this score is jump up, yeah, from the last year.
Yep.
Whereas the last year is only coming at the 32 in the ranking, and now it's become 12 in the ranking. So what has been done in 1 year actually that could shift a lot the position?
I'm not sure if anything has been done differently. There's nothing radically I can think of.
Yes.
Maybe some other cities became much more unlivable, but Perth is very, very livable in terms of if we're talking about transport, and it was mentioned in the video Mina showed, the student talking about how easy it is to get into the city, and it's very easy, I think, to get around Perth, particularly by car. Public transport is we have an okay public transport system in Perth. There are some very good aspects to it, but we're very sort of spread out, and there's a lot of parts of Perth. It's you can't get around unless you have a car. So that's something to improve, but definitely, yes, I agree. It's the most livable city in the world for me. Anyway.
Yeah, I witnessed by myself. It's very convenient actually living in Perth. Yeah. Yes, of course we need to combine using car and public transport while we are living in Perth. I agree with that. Yeah, because the huge distance. Yeah, the city is spread out from the north to the south area. Quite in a long distance. Yeah. So I also remember that during my visit in Perth and my living in Perth, that actually the opening of Perth Mandurah Highway is the new one, right? And it said that the leadership is above the predicted one, right?
Yep.
So
very successful.
So what do you think the contribution for that? Yeah. What do you think the contribution of the successful opening of the Perth Mandurah Highway line at that time?
It was a very well planned line, and one of the key. So for people who don't know, so Mandurah is about 50, 70 kilometers south of Perth.
As far as I remember, yeah.
Yeah, and this was in 2007, and we had up until that point we had 4 rail lines, but this was the 5th. It was a new rail line down to Mandurah. It was very successful because they intentionally planned it to be competitive to the car in terms of the travel from Mandurah into the city is sometimes faster than the car, even though the train is stopping. So it really caters to the people who want to get into the city. So a lot of people work in the city. There's a lot around the stations. There's a lot of car parks. So there's that you can drive to the car park and get onto the train. And that's actually, we do that well in Perth. There's also a lot of buses that are well integrated into the train line at the stations, so that the buses arrive with enough time that you can get off the bus and onto the train and into the city. You're not waiting too long. And so those kinds of things, the very integration between the different services and the providing for car park next to the train stations was very successful in getting a lot of people onto that rail line.
Yeah. Okay, so everyone, we still open questions. Yeah, so please, if you are interested, raise your hand, and we can share a lot with Courtney actually. Yeah. So maybe while you are waiting for your curiosity, yeah, I just recap from what Courtney has delivered, yeah. So Courtney has given a comprehensive overview in planning and policy of decarbonizing of the city, yeah, starting with presentation of facts and confidence on reasoning why it is important to tackle the climate impact from the transport sector, especially from the road-based transport sector, whereas the private cars are dominated. So then Courtney also discussing the challenge that it is complex matters and difficult one to be solved, right? So because we have to balancing supply and demand on of transport in one hand, and the limitation of resources, space, budget on the other hand, Pak Courtney says that we need a transformative change, So a transformative change means that we need to figure out what sort of transport demand management incentive that we need to propose for this transformative change. Then Pak Courtney mentioned 9 categories, for transport demand management, starting from improvement to alternative modes, and then integrated land use and transport, workplace-based TDM, tackle behavior change, information management, management of road space, governance and administration, parking, economic measures, and pricing. So there are 9 categories of set of incentive and disincentive, that can be delivered in order to create the transformative change for decarbonizing of the city. So, is there anyone who would like to ask questions? I think, is there any student from transport management subject? Ada yang dari transport management, mata kuliah transport management tidak ya? Adik-adik, silakan. We can reflect what we have been discussed in the past with what delivered by Pak Courtney today, in order to have a greater understanding on the topic of the TDM. So I also remember Pak Courtney that is it correct that maybe society has some staging of maturity in terms of accepting public transport services? I just wondering what is your opinion about this? Because maybe if the public transport has been there for a long time, for example, maybe in some of the cities in Europe, there is no need to there are no need for raising awareness. Okay, the culture and the habit will be already part of the society attributes themselves to embrace using sustainable transport mode, for example, So in Indonesia, in most of the I just wondering.
I missed the beginning of that, and that was your question about it was about culture of public transport in terms of the more about some of how that can be a barrier to public transport. Is that the type of question? Sorry, I couldn't
hear kind of that one. I mean, is that true that there are staging in maturity in the society until they reach the culture embracing public transport use? Is there any staging, or put another way on, like you said, that is it possible that culture become part of the values in using public transport? So in order to formulate when to start with, from where we should begin, the improvement. What do you think?
Look, I think sort of cultural practices are important in transport, and they do kind of sometimes lock in good behaviours, but also sort of some resistance to sort of new ways of moving around cities or new infrastructure or something like that. I think with transport or any sort of transport choice anyway, I think it needs to be, we need to think about how it compares to all other alternatives, particularly with the car. If we have a situation in Perth where we've got a new rail program called Metronet, which is being built at the moment, which is quite significant, lots of different lines, lots of different stations. And I think some of them are very well placed and well placed in the network. They're connecting to the sort of suburbs where they haven't got public transport at the moment. But at the same time, the government is building a lot of roads to the same areas of the city. So upgrading road infrastructure and things. So what we find is there's the comparison. If it takes a comparable amount of time to get into the city by car, by a new road, people will always sort of drift towards that rather than the sort of something which they may perceive or may have a sort of cultural sort of aversion to or something like that. So culture is important, but culture is shaped by the availability of the options of transport. Well, we need to sort of think about how we can make it easier or make it the preferable sort of mode of transport, and culture does sort of shift in response to that. But it can be a kind of one of those path dependent sort of factors, I think.
Yeah, okay, Pak. Because I'm quite surprised when you said that Australian government or maybe Western Australian government, when you mentioned about the three social behavior change and concept of avoid, shift, and improve, right? And you said that Australian government or maybe Western Australian government didn't do the avoid and shift, but tend to do the improve aspect only, improving efficiency improvement. So it is make me curious about that staging in the society, maturity of the society in terms of accepting public transport. Yeah, is it then we can conclude that Perth is already ready. The Perth community is already ready and it already has high awareness, educated, and so on and so forth. So the government seems to see that the policy for avoid or shift is no longer applicable because they already knew what they face. Yeah, they are already knew the choice and make rational decision. Is that the background for the quality of the policy?
I think the reluctant the preference of looking at the improve, I think it has a lot to do with the government, I think, capacity in responding. So avoid and shift, they require a lot more sort of careful policy work. Improve, there can be providing subsidies to the private sector in order to sort of improve the technologies. So I think in Australia, I think, and in other countries around the world, we've tended to look to the private sector to solve a lot of the problems. The government has looked to the private sector to solve a lot of the problems, and whereas that's great in some situations, but our capacity to actually carefully design policy that avoids and shifts travel to more sustainable modes, we've kind of lost some of that capacity, I think, or don't have that sort of capacity. I think it's a conscious choice of our government anyway in Australia as well to really sort of maybe a bit more hands off and let things sort of sort them out. But yeah, so I think it's more of a sort of a culture of government in terms of some of those the decisions to pursue those different approaches.
Yeah, because as far as I remember in the past, Australian government has already making some innovative policy. Like I think they issue program like Living Change program, Indima program. I think as far as I remember in some part of the Western Australia and South Australia as well. Yeah. So maybe in the beginning we still need to start with the educating people and giving them information and giving them awareness, outreach, socialization. So but now it is not quite the priority anymore. Yep. Yeah, because as you mentioned, the reason for the priority of the government of Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Indonesian context, I think we still need to conduct this yearly preparing the society itself. So quite challenging. The challenge not only come from the government in terms of the willingness of the government, budget availability, and so on and so forth, but also from the society itself. So it's quite heavy. What I mean, this is a big problem in our city, and we are as academic actually facing a big challenge in order to try to giving solution and giving some recommendation to our city. So it is quite a big stuff for us. So maybe I try to open again the Q&A session. Is there any interest from the students? Please raise your hand. Maybe we can start with 3 participants. So there are students from transport system subject and also students from transport management subject. I think quite familiar with the topic on transport demand management actually. So is there anything?
I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to respond to anything transport related.
Sure. So maybe Yusuf can. Miss Mina.
Yes. So while we are waiting for our students to type their questions or think of the question, can I ask Courtney, one of our students, Ratia, I hope that I pronounced it right, the third year student asked about the internship opportunities at Curtin. Would you be able to tell us the work integrated learning or industry project internship opportunities at Curtin? How does that work?
It's not really. I think Jake is the person who looks after the internships. But we have we don't have a sort of compulsory internship program, but there's a lot of opportunities that we find through a couple of our units that provide internships. I think professional practice is one. And the internships, actually, Jake has been looking at internships in Western Australian agencies as well, but there's also sort of global internships that our students go on as well. So there's short-term opportunities for internships, but also some longer term as well. That's about as much as I can remember about that, Mina.
Thank you, Courtney.
And in terms of transport, we've had there's a few students at the moment at the Department of Transport who are doing work with the cycling team there. We just had them come in and talk about their experience with our transport planning students as well. But it tends to be quite diverse, lots of opportunities, but it tends to be a little ad hoc rather than a formal sort of program for internships. But we have our planning course is very much a sort of industry facing course. We have a lot of interaction with industry. So I have about 10 or 12 industry professionals who come in for urban transport systems and work in different sort of different aspects of transport through that unit. And other units as well. So we tend to focus a lot on sort of industry connections with key stakeholders.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Ibu Mina, Miss Mina. Pak Courtney, there is one question in the chat box from our student. So the question is coming from Lionel John Felix. Good afternoon, Mr. Courtney. Thank you for the insightful explanation. Sorry, I can't speak right now. My name is Rinaldi from Urban and Regional Planning ITS. I would like to ask you a question. When we talk about TDM, one of the key focuses is undoubtedly on changing behavior in choosing transportation, such as switching from private transport to public transport. However, I find it challenging to do so because of climate factors in Surabaya. The temperature can reach 40 degrees Celsius, which makes it difficult for pedestrians to walk to the nearest bus stop. Based on your experience, are there any policies that are effective in changing driving behavior in situations like this? Okay, I think first will be a good example because the weather temperature is quite high as well. So this part continue to respond to this question.
Yeah, this is a big issue. I mean, many cities and regions around the world, and with increasing temperatures as well, it will become an even more critical issue. One of the not so good things about Perth is that I mean, we have a very green city, but our style of development that we have and urban development is reducing the tree canopy. So we have a lot of streets that are very, very hot and exposed. I think 40 degrees in Indonesia is very different to 40 degrees in Australia, but still quite challenging. So I think there's a range of aspects about improving shade in streets for pedestrians and reducing heat that way. But even so, that's still the ambient temperature can be very, very high as well. So sometimes reducing the distance that people do have to walk through better location of public transport stops and other means can be important. And there's other, in very sort of maybe highly sort of very busy sort of pedestrian areas, there can be sort of modifications that can be made to the street through sort of different misting and things like this, in which can cool temperatures but I think critically it's about providing shade and it's also about providing options for people within a feasible walking distance, so that we're not relying on people to walk, a couple of kilometres or something for basic services to reach a bus stop or things like this. So it is challenging, but yeah, I think they're the sort of the best approaches. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Courtney. So Pak Courtney mentioned that improving state of streets, ya Pak ya, reducing the distance of walking, providing options within feasible walking distance. Yeah. Okay. Is there any more questions, guys? Please raise your hand. Yeah. Okay, Ricky, thank you. Please to Thank you, Ricky. Silakan.
Okay. First, thank you to Mr. Conley for the insightful lecture. And my name is Rifki from the transportation system subject. So, my question is, how can we do as quote-unquote policymakers to undo the damage of already major city built, where more housing complex and roads are being built, and there's so many demand already in a big city, with many housings already built, and then with many housing already built, we already has many cars, many roads to be more travel demands. And how can we control the travel demands if the city is already so dense? And
So thanks for the question, Ricky. Yeah, it is a big challenge. I think, and the part of the reason why I have present the lecture in this way and presenting a range of tools, I think is that there's not one answer. In that we need to think across the range of different policy mechanisms or tools that we have. Look at what they do, but we need to combine different approaches. I think it's not just one approach. That's right. We have a kind of legacy of decisions that have led to very, in Australian sense, car dependent. I think in Indonesia, it's maybe increasing increasing car use in recent years, and very dense, a lot more denser than we have in Australian cities. But it requires what we call policy package. So a package of different mechanisms that can work maybe together, provide those incentives, but also for the behaviour that we want to achieve, and disincentives there for reducing the behaviour or the type of development that we're trying to avoid. So there's no simple answer, but I think it requires people like yourself, like policymakers and future policymakers to know what's out there, to experiment, to maybe try things and monitor, evaluate, and then maybe adjust. But yeah, it's not simple, but you need to persist.
Yeah, I do think that what she said is very interesting. Yeah, because this is what happened in most of the city in Indonesia. Yeah. So maybe another question is what to undo the urban form that already oriented. Yeah. In our city is very oriented, including the built environment at the micro level, at the urban design level. So what do you think, Pak?
Yeah. We have the same, but probably different looking issue in Perth in terms of we've built a very car dependent city, and how do we undo that? That's, again, there's no easy answer. This is some of the path dependencies that I was talking about, particularly with the physical built environment. When we build things, it costs a lot of money, but it also it costs a lot of money to change things, and we lock in our developments. So I think there's gradually. It can be a slow process, but cities can be regenerated through looking at through gradual sort of changing back of reclaiming space for people, for walking, cycling, for green trees, that road space reallocation issue. But it's also trying to get the decisions that we make now not to have these longer term legacy issues that we face now as well. So improving the types of developments we have now. And it sounds like a straightforward thing, and that's wonderful, and we want to achieve that. But yeah, we need to think that it's not a simple thing, and it will take time, but we need to kind of persist. If we get too overwhelmed by it and not do anything, I think that will be a worse outcome. But yes.
Yeah. Not do anything is the worst outcome. I agree, very on point, yeah, Pak. Yeah. And also I agree that maybe, especially in Surabaya city, we are in the stage of needing to expand actually the infrastructure of public transport itself. So because we only have 3 routes of Surabaya bus, and we only have 5 to 6 to 7 feeder road systems. So the spatial coverage is very, very low.
Yep.
Although the coverage in terms of the population is only like 12% at this moment. So yeah, the challenge to reclaim, I agree with the term of reclaiming, yeah, Pak, yeah, the space for walking and cycling. Maybe we can start over from the from small area, yeah, like maybe the theory concept, choosing spots or areas that's suitable to develop in a more COD support the environment, and gradually to improve physical or built environment situation, and also the infrastructure or the supply itself, yeah. Yep. Thank you. I think we almost reached the end of the session. So we are very grateful for Pak Courtney in deliver this guest lecture. And we acknowledge that this is the second time Pak Courtney delivering the guest lecture to ITS students, and we are very thankful for Pak Courtney for his willingness to share his knowledge to all of us, and we hope Pak Courtney we still can make can be in touch, Pak, maybe sometimes I can email you and maybe ask for join or opportunity for collaboration, something like that. Hopefully it's okay for you, Pak Courtney, and also maybe with other lecturer as well in our department. So is there any closing statement from Pak Courtney, maybe? Yes, Pak. Please, if you have any closing statement.
No, that's I'd be very happy to collaborate, City. So yeah, it's great to hear. But no, no closing statement. Just thanks for everyone attending. It's been wonderful again, and I've one day I'll come up to Indonesia and we'll see you in person. And
sure. Hopefully, we'll be very happy. And also I want to come to Perth as well, maybe sometime. And Pak Mas Yusuf, maybe take photo Pak before we end the session, Pak Yusuf. Students, please to open your cam, if possible. We will need a photo session before we close everything,
Okay, I will take picture in 3, 2, 1. Okay, again, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Thank you, Pak Yusuf. So for myself, thank you very much, everyone, and most especially to Pak Courtney. Thank you very much, Pak Courtney. We are looking forward for the third guest lecture from you in the near future. So I give the session back to Pak Ilman, or maybe Mas Yusuf. Are we just close the sessions, or is there any other things that the committee would like to? Mas Yusuf, ini langsung ditutup saja, Mas, atau bagaimana dari panitia?
Tapi sepertinya langsung karena Pak Ilmannya
langsung ditutup.
Langsung.
Pak Ilman sudah live. Okay, thank you very much, Miss Mina. Is there any final thought you want to say?
The final comments from me, yes.
Miss Mina.
It has been wonderful to meet you all and really working together with ITS team. I'm really looking forward to developing this partnership further and supporting our student journey. I look forward to seeing you all in person very soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Miss Mina. Thank you very much, Pak Courtney. Then we end the session. Thank you very much, everyone. We apologize if there is any mistake from all of us. From ITS. See you again in the next opportunity. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you all.
Terima kasih, Pak Courtney. See you again. Thanks. Bye.